Hello, my name is Tom Ebeling, and I am the community arborist with Open Lands. And today we are going to talk about proper tree planting technique for a container-grown tree. All right, we're going to start with a little overview of all the tools that we're going to be using. First off, we have a standard box cutter with a replaceable razor blade on there, and we also have what's called a root saw. These tools are both going to be used to help us just get the tree out of the container itself. But before we take the tree out of the container, we're going to use this all-important tool, which is just a simple yardstick. So we have this so that we can measure the width and the height of the root ball so that we are going to have a hole that is dug exactly the correct size. We want it to be at least 2 times the width of this root ball here, and we want it to be only as deep as the root flare of the tree. And we'll come back and talk about the root flare in just a minute. Once we have our hole measured and we have our tree removed from the container, we're going to switch over to the shovel. The first thing we're going to do with the shovel is we're going to peel back the turf that is on top of the planting space, and then hopefully we're going to use this to dig most of our hole. I say hopefully because we also have a pick mattocks here, so the pick is going to be used in case the ground is a little bit harder than we anticipated, or if there's any large rocks or any other fun surprises that we might find when we're digging in the city. And then lastly, of course, we have just a classic rake, a hard rake, which will help us keep our planting area tidy and also make sure everything looks really nice and clean when we finish the planting, because we always want to leave the site looking better than when we arrived. So before we can actually measure the height of the root ball to get our proper hole depth, we need to identify one very important feature of the tree, which is the root flare. And you can see on this tree has a really strong root flare where you can see the trunk is transitioning into the root system. The very easiest way to identify the actual root flare is the top of the primary roots that you see coming off the tree. So any of these larger roots that are coming off of the trunk, you want the very tops of those to be exposed to the air. The reason the root flare is so important is because it's kind of the crossroads of the entire tree. Everything that the roots does for the tree has to be brought up through the root flare, and everything that the top of the tree does for the root system has to move down through the root flare. So we need to have this planted at soil level. So if you can picture, the soil is going to be, we're going to plant it in the ground up to this level exactly. Okay, so now that we have figured out the exact depth that my hole needs to be, I'm going to measure the width of the root ball so that I can make sure and dig my hole 2 times the size of the root ball itself. And I want to be generous when I'm measuring, because digging a large hole will be beneficial for the tree in the long run. So I'm going to say this is about 20 inches wide. So I'm going to take my 20-inch mark, that is 1 times the width, and I'm going to set it exactly in the center of where I would like my planting hole to be. I happen to have a 40-inch measuring stick here, so I'm just going to cut a circle in the turf all the way around the tips of this measuring stick, and that will provide us with a hole that is exactly 2 times the width of the root ball of our tree.
After I remove the turf, I always measure my shovel blade to help prevent me from making my hole too deep. sure to remove the entire container before planting the tree. If any part of the container remains, it could impact the long-term success of the tree. With your hands, rough up the outside of the root ball. This will help ensure that any roots that are growing in a circle are able to break free and grow out into the surrounding soil. We call this tickling the root ball. Only remove dead or damaged branches at the time of planting. It is important that stress to the tree is minimized until after the tree has been established. Let the tree grow for 3 years before doing any pruning because the tree needs as many leaves as possible to help grow a strong root system. Before backfilling the hole, make sure the tree is as straight as possible. Check for straightness from several different angles and from a distance before you start to backfill. When backfilling the planting hole, always use the same soil that came out of the hole. Do not add any gravel or compost to the bottom of the hole. Instead, pack the soil firmly around the tree, layer by layer, so that the tree is comfortably tucked into the ground. Use your heel to tuck in the tree, but make sure not to step on or compact the root ball. There should not be any large pockets of air in your hole by the time you are done planting. You only get to do this once, so please take your time. When mulching, the mulch should never be piled against the tree's trunk. This is called volcano mulching and can severely damage a tree in the long run. When mulching your tree, make sure the root flare is completely exposed. We abide by the 3 by 3 by 3 rule. The mulch ring should be 3 inches away from the trunk of the tree, at least 3 feet wide, and 3 inches deep. Proper mulching will help prevent drought stress as well as protect the lower trunk from lawnmower damage. When watering the tree, apply the water slowly and allow it to soak in completely. Apply all 15 to 20 gallons of water at the same time. Newly planted trees should be watered every single week from the time they are planted until the ground freezes. This weekly watering is necessary for at least the first 3 years after planting. The final step is the placement of a tree guard. This guard will help protect the tree from lawnmowers and string trimmers during the establishment period, but make sure to remove the guard when the diameter of the trunk increases. When the guard can no longer move freely around the trunk, then it should be removed.
All right, so now we have arrived at our properly planted young tree. The reason proper planting is so important is because it will set it up for a lifetime of success, and it will allow it to grow to its full size and maturity. And when it has reached its full maturity, then we will receive the most amount of benefits that this tree can possibly provide to us and to the community and to whoever will be around to experience this tree. So with that, I want to give you a big thank you from Open Lands. Thank you for your interest in trees, and we really look forward to seeing you out in the field. So see you soon.